Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Ramona Vallee. We're going to be discussing her amazing novel, Expression of Honor. Now, when you head on over to Amazon at Barnes & Noble and you want to purchase the book, you're going to see that it was co-written not only by Ramona Vallee, but also her father, George Richardson. So make sure that you're getting the right copy. This is something you're going to want to get lost in. And before we go any further, I do want to quickly take this opportunity and point out that Ramona was brought to our network, People of Distinction, by one of the best advertisers in the business. And of course, I'm talking about Author Reputation Press. If you are an author out there, you've written a book that you need help moving, I'm going to give you some fantastic advice. You got to contact ARP. They're one of the best in the business to do it. And this is what they specialize in, people. They will help you take your literary creation to the next level. So head on over to authorreputationpress.com today and gather all the ways that they're going to be able to help you do just that. And listen, it is a true pleasure to have Ramona here on the line. Now, this book, Expression of Honor, is a historical fiction, okay? So you know part of it is going to be steeped in reality. And for me personally, there's just something about true stories, something about novels that are based upon true events that just heighten the stakes, right? It just makes it a little bit sweeter when you know that some of these things actually happened. So I love that. But also, it's a Civil War romance. So my history buffs out there, you're going to have something to get lost in. For all my romantics out there, you're also going to have something to get lost in. This book has an amazing journey that you're going to want to embark upon on a rainy day, just to pass the time, really whatever. You're going to want this book on your shelf. Now, please believe it, people, we're only going to scratch the surface here today, okay? So we're going to capture the essence of it. But you're going to need to head on over, as I mentioned, to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and purchase your copies to gather all of the information. And I promise you, by the time we finish discussing it here today, you're going to run and do just that. But don't take my word for it. Take Ramona's. It's her book. She's written it with her father. She's done the research. She's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So let's bring her here with us. Ramona, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Listen, it's truly a pleasure. We're looking to embark upon this. I mean, I think this book I think what you're embarking upon is special and it's profound, and I think this is something that we need right now. I mean, listen, I just speaking from my own experience and what I see happening around me, society and globally, like there's a lot happening right now, okay? There's a lot of division in the world. There's a lot of things to get caught up in. In a book of this magnitude, something to just take you away from all of that, I think is needed. So it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you for writing this book and for joining us in this discussion. And before we go into the words that are on those pages, Ramona, let's start off by learning a little bit more about yourself. Please tell us more about your background.
Okay, I was born in Iowa in 1948, and I had a very happy childhood. And later on, when I was in college, I wanted to pursue writing, but I was told that by a counselor that it was too crowded of a field. So then I became a hairdresser, and I had a family. And later on, when my father was dying, he asked me to rewrite his book. I call it a first draft. And so it took me like 40 years to do it, but I did do it. I had raising kids, teaching them how to drive, getting through school and all that stuff. That eats up your time, but it's a worthwhile task. So I had to do that first.
Absolutely. Now, Ramona, let's stick with inspiration here for a second. So this is, of course, a book that your father had begun, and he asked if you could continue that process. Now, Do you happen to have a background in writing? I know that, of course, you mentioned that you went into hairstyling, right? So that's really what your career was. But did you have a hobby of writing growing up? Was this a passion of yours? Talk to us a little bit more about where that love for creative writing came from. Or was it really just an inspiration that came from your father?
I think so. It came from my father, and I had some good teachers. Mm-hmm. And I did short story creative writing, and then when I had kids, when they grew up, they said, "Mom, we got to write this story about." We took a trip. That was my husband had converted an old bus into a motor home, and they said that all the little crazy things that happened during that trip. So I wrote that for them, just to laugh. It was a funny story.
There you have it. Well, Ramona, without further ado, the anchor for today is all about your fantastic book, Expression of Honor. Tell us a little bit more about it.
I've made a false start in the early 80s, and I didn't like what I was writing, so I wrote 200 pages, and I just had to throw it away. And then later on, when I converted to the Catholic faith, then I was much more inspired to write this book. And that certain things in the faith gave me that inspiration. So it seemed to come from somewhere else. It just I feel it was divinely inspired.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ramona, can you tell us a little bit more? I know this is a Civil War romance. Can you tell us a little bit more about the narrative that your readers are going to embark upon opening the book?
It's a story about the Western campaign under Ulysses S. Grant, and how he gathered people. Grant, how people became into the army. There might have been a draft, but the soldiers that were at higher ranks, they were like voted in by certain groups of people in their states. So I found that interesting. Mm-hmm. And how they kind of gathered together and then divided the groups up. There was a kind of a rousing speech by Grant at Cairo, Illinois, for the troops, how to fight the war. And don't give up. You just keep going.
Yeah.
And then the main characters are Frank Winslow, who is a lieutenant colonel at the beginning of the book, and then Juliette Belchas, who came from France, and her reasons for getting to this country, and his reasons for fighting the war, because he came from bloody Kansas. Kansas was really a disaster prior to the war. So how they converged together and all the events leading up to each person finally meeting the other person. And so I hate to reveal too much, but it does have a happy ending.
Well, listen, that is perfectly enough, Ramona. Thank you very much. And what a smart woman, right? Because people, Amazon and Barnes & Noble, she's not going to give everything away. You got to go and purchase your copies so you can get lost in it and learn everything for yourself. Going quickly back to inspiration here, when it comes to your father, because I know he started this journey in writing it. Because this is a historical fiction, was your father someone that was interested in history? Why did he choose to write this novel? What inspired him? Do you know?
Well, he loved his grandpa Homer, and that was an inspiration. And then he went on to be in World War II, and he chased Rommel, the desert fox, over in Africa. And then he was a crew chief for Roosevelt's plane when they met at Yalta. And I forget what year that was. I think it was probably 42 or 3. I can't remember. But anyway, he was an inspiration on his own.
Two-part question here with this next one. First and foremost, who would you say is your intended reader with this book? And secondly, what are some of the main messages or themes that you hope that they take from it after reading it?
my intended readers is people that like history and romance. How about that? And then the second part is my inspiration. The message. Okay. During the war, any war, there's a lot of orphans, and I picked up on that theme a little bit in my book.
And curiosity for myself with this next one, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing the book? Or if not a highlight, something that surprised you that you weren't anticipating before you began?
I really appreciated reading Charles Dickens as a younger person, and I felt that his characterizations of the characters really helps draw people in. So I try to do similar characterizations, to make people interesting.
Mm-hmm. I love having this platform. So I'm an artist myself. I'm in a different medium, but I do love having my platform to be able to utilize and pay it forward whenever the opportunity presents itself. Now, I want to take an opportunity for any new writers out there listening in. Someone just starting off on their journey. This is a book that maybe didn't start with you, but you've picked it up, you've taken it across the goal line, and you now are a bona fide writer, right? You're a bona fide author. For anybody out there listening in right now, someone that's just starting out on their writing journey, what are some words of wisdom or advice that you can offer them to help?
I took bad advice, and I listened to my counselor in college, and I decided I wouldn't be a writer, I'd be a hairdresser. But I ended up at the end of my life here writing a book. So don't give up, and don't listen to people who say that the field is crowded.
Yeah, I
Go
love that.
forward.
I love that because listen, that's fantastic advice for artists, right? Don't give up. But isn't that wonderful advice just for life? I don't care what your background is in. How many of us can relate to having aspirations, having dreams of whatever it may be, but due to fear of rejection or fear of failure, whatever the case may be, we shy away from advancing that way. And I think that is fantastic advice. And please believe it, I understand that it is not as easy as those words are, right? It's difficult. But taking that leap of faith, there's something to it where, for me, I've always felt that I could deal with failure. What I can't deal with is that what if question in the back of my mind, constantly nagging me and not knowing, right? Again, I understand, people, it is not as easy as that in the moment, but what fantastic advice of just perseverance. Right? Ain't nothing to it but to do it. And sometimes you just got to go for it. So for my writers out there, just put the pen to the page and just move it. That is fantastic. I love it. And people, you know what I love even more is we are at the end of the interview now. We've discussed so much information pertaining to her book, Expression of Honor. And yet somehow we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much left to be discovered. You have to go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pick up your copy of Expression of Honor. It's by Ramona Vallee and George Richardson. You're going to want to get lost in this. I'm telling you, this is a wonderful book to add to your shelf, an even better gift to add to someone else's. So you know where to go. Ramona, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.